Hello and welcome back. In this video, we are going to test this resend email method. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to have three cases. Okay, the first is if the method this get user by email, it doesn't return any value or any object. If it returns an object, and then we're also going to test if this method was actually called when we call resend email. Okay, so let's go back here. I will just let me copy this to save us some time. Okay, so copy this describe, move it down here. Let me collapse this, and then I'll call this resend email. Okay, now probably the first case, the first case right here will be should return or call this bad request error right here. Okay, so we're going to use that as our first case, and by that I think I will move this here to the top. Okay, so probably I will say resend email method should call bad request error for invalid email. Okay, so we want to test this case. If this function does not return any object, we expect it to call this bad request error. Okay, so right here we mock the request, we mock the response. Now the name of the function is called get user email. Okay, so get user email. Now it's not going to return an actual object, it's just going to return an empty object or an empty curly braces. Okay, now how do we test this? We're going to call resend email. Okay, so import this right here. And now what I want to do, let me comment this out. Now for this, because we want to check for error case, what we can do is simple. We can pass this inside a catch block. Okay, remember that this function is a promise. Okay, so we have access to then and also to catch. So catch, and then we can then expect. Okay, so I want to expect or check that bad request error was called with these properties. And how do we get this bad request error? Let's go to the top here. I'll say import all from as helper. Okay, from our shared library. Okay, so I want to import all as helper from the shared library, and then here I'll say helper dot bad request error dot to have been called with. Okay, to have been called with. Now what do we expect it to have been called with? We expect it to have been called with these properties. So I'll copy all of this and then paste here. Okay, so if there's an error, if this get user email does not return an object, then we expect the bad request error to have been called with these properties. Okay, so what we have right here. So that is the first test case. The second test case, I want to add all the test cases before we run the command. Okay, the second test case is we want to make sure that this update verified email field was called. Okay, it's going to be very simple. Okay, so duplicate this right here, and this should call this. Okay, method. Okay, so here it's going to be different. I'm not going to use the catch. Instead, I'll use await. And then down here, I expect auth dot update verify email field dot, and then let's see if we can pass it. Yeah, for this it's going to be a little bit challenging to get these random characters, because every time we run, these random characters will always change. Okay, so probably we can just say to have been called. Okay, So we expect that at least this method was called. Okay, and then the last test case is it should call this get auth user by ID, and then also the JSON response should have these properties. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, instead of okay, let me see what this function is called. It's called get auth user by ID. Okay, so get auth user by ID. Maybe I can also call this sorry, here there is one mistake. This will throw an error because this is empty, so it's supposed to be auth mock. Okay, so this is supposed to be auth mock. Okay, I can use this here as well. Okay, get user by email and get auth user by ID. Now we expect also this update verify to have been called. And what is the status? The status should be 201. Okay, the status should be 201, or I think probably 200 makes much sense. Yeah, we can change this to 200. So okay, so 200. Okay, so we expect the status to be 200, and then the JSON response should be email was sent, or email verification sent, and then the user should be whatever this get auth user by ID returns, which is auth mock. Okay, so we just added just these 3 tests for this function. Okay, maybe you can add other tests. You can maybe check on your own if publish direct message was called. Okay, so you can do that by just you try to spy from this path. Okay, the file from where this was exported from, you can spy on it, and then you check if this function was actually called. Okay, so now let's try to run this npm run tests. Okay, so I got an error, and I think I know why. I got an error. The reason is because here I was supposed to call resend email and not read. Okay, so here it's supposed to be resend email, so that's the reason why I got the error. Now let me try it again. Okay, so you can see here now the tests are passed. Okay, so with this now we have the test for our current user, and then if you check here, it created this coverage folder. Yeah, we are not going to be using it, but yeah, just to show that okay, we can create coverage and then send it to a tool that can be used to view the coverage. Okay,